So my initial answer to this question actually was going to be, we do it all. Like we forecast on a yearly, forecast annually, and then we break that into the monthly, and then we break that into daily targets. And then we have daily projections for every single campaign and every single media channel as well. So we have this for everything. And over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we break down the daily targets into hourly targets so that we can track against it. So yes, option A, B, C to the caller's question, and option D of hourly and answer time periods.
This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Vermont. Whether you're running paid ads on Meta, Google, or TikTok, Vermont can help you increase your conversion rates without touching your website. They help you save time by generating high-converting landing pages in minutes using AI and boost your ROI growth with built-in A/B testing and real-time optimization. Vermont offers seamless integration with your ad platforms and Shopify checkout, so you can create custom post-click experiences without designers or developers. Over 500 brands have scaled their e-commerce business with Vermont, improving their conversion rates by an average of 30%. Go to vermont.com/CTC today and sign up for your exclusive 7-day trial. That's FERMAT.com/CTC.
Three dirndls, I think, which is
Three dirndls.
the dress.
That seems like more dirndls than most people would have.
Also, she was very excited because apparently what side you tie the bow for the dirndl indicates your relationship status. So she was very excited to tie up her bow on her taken side, which I believe is
nice.
the right side. I should double check that on the internet, make sure it was,
nice.
The right setup.
All right, cool. Well, and then we also, of course, have our VP of e-commerce strategy, Mr. Luke, the Weatherman Austin, here to answer some questions. Luke, anything as exciting as 3 dirndls in your life?
No 3 dirndls, no lederhosen, no German beers. Yeah, I can't say that. Nor did I know that fun fact about the taken side.
Yeah,
but it seems very handy, like just socially.
Yeah.
If we all wore things that somehow signaled our relational status in that way. We got wedding rings, but it's not as, I don't know.
Well, it's not like dating versus single, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's sort of like, I guess the guy, like, what if it was like pop collar versus straight collar? Pop is like, okay,
definitely not taken. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then this, and there's probably one where it's like one side up, one side down. So
yeah, there you go. All right. Well, hey, that's what we're here for on the e-commerce, or rather, sorry, on the DTC hotline. Gonna know the name of my own show here, but that's what we're here for, is to solve problems. And Luke's is already digging into it, which we love. So basically, like the format here, if you haven't listened to us before, is we get questions from listeners, questions from members of our subscription service Admission, and we let Tony and Luke go nuts on those questions. So we're gonna jump into our very first voicemail here. We got a little bit of a 2-parter. So let's see what we got.
I have a question about the pod that you guys released today, and was hoping you would answer this on the DTC hotline. Actually, it's 2 questions. So first question is, how do I know if I'm overspending in Q4? So what would be the sign that my ad spend is past the point of efficiency on the AMR curve? My second question is, how can I calculate how many ads I actually need to hit my Q4 targets? What's the creative demand model formula for brands spending around $500K a month?
All right. Well, there we go. So who wants to jump on this one here?
So it's interesting because the things we talk about in the other avenues directly relate to tools or solutions that we have available, so that we have that in a way. So the short answer to both of those questions would be that you don't know for either of those questions until you have a solution, a model built specifically for your individual brand. Because for the spend AMR model, the rate at which your ad spend degrades in efficiency is specific to your individual brand at a specific point in time. And creative demand model, which connects to the spend AMR model, is relative to your individual performance. So a brand spending $500,000, brand A spending $500,000 might need 300 ads. Brand B spending $500,000 might need twice as many ads to get to the same place because of how their efficiency degrades and because of how their historical performance of their creative has contributed to that. So that sort of like broader answer aside, there's something in here around there's a question around the 5 creative metrics and how those are sort of contributing to the creative demand score, which I think is worth pulling apart, and orient the conversation around for a minute here, which is in our creative demand model, which tells you how many ads you need to create, what your creative output needs to be to achieve your spend goals. There are 5 individual metrics that we look at in assessing the creative demand score. And your creative score is a culmination of these individual 5 metrics. And so the 5 things we look at is 0 spend rate, so the percentage of active ads that had 0 spend during the time period measured. So no ad spend on those ads. The second metric is ad concentration, which is the percentage of total ad spend concentrated in the top 5 performing ads. If you have high value here, where 30% of your spend at any given point in time is concentrating in 5 ads, that's gonna be a negative contributor to your score. The second metric is ROAS, or the third metric is ROAS degradation, change in ROAS after the initial launch week. So after you launch ads, does the efficiency improve or degrade? And then fourth metric, tightly connected spend degradation, the change in daily spend after the initial launch week. After week 1, so by spend, do they start picking up more spend? Do they start dropping off in terms of their delivery? And then the fifth metric, evergreen share, the percentage of ads that have been running consistently for 30 plus days. So how many of your ads do you carry with you into the future that keep going and contributing to the brand? And all 5 of those culminate in your creative score. Every brand is going to have a unique creative score, and their creative score is going to be composed of these metrics in a different way. So if your creative score is 35, let's say, for your brand, another brand may also have a 35 score, but because of the composition of that score, if, for example, for brand A, evergreen share is really strong in terms of the metric, but ROAS degradation is really low, they have a 35. The second brand, even though they have a 35, if their evergreen share is lower and their ROAS degradation is higher, the individual metrics are going to contribute to the output in a way as well that's unique to each brand, because these metrics look at different things relative to the creative performance, right? So evergreen share, if you have ads that are continuing with you in the future, that's going to have a greater impact on you needing less volume in a long period of time, and so on. So those are some of the things we look at in these models. Now, this was like sort of this is why we built these tools to answer those difficult questions, because they are really complicated questions. And here's some of the things that we look at. Tony, what would you say? You have any hotter takes than this one? Because this was lukewarm at best.
Is that a play on words?
I like it.
Lukewarm. No, I mean, I think that this like tooling that we've built, which is always like our story, we just build the tools that we need to do the thing. And I think this iteration of it like feels by far the best answer to the question that we've ever had. I'm sort of going to double down on your point that the answer is unique to the brand, and it's the composite of these things. I had an experience last week that I thought was really, really interesting in one of our stylist jams internally. One of our strategists was talking about the process of aligning to a target for can't remember if it was for Q4 or just for the month of October with one of her clients. And the client in this particular case had the way that they thought about their business was revenue per day. So they were after a certain amount of revenue on a daily basis. So the strategist went through and worked in the planning section in Status and started with that as the end point, like to get to this revenue per day, saved it in the planning section, and then bounced over to the creative demand module. And the result of the financial plan plus the creative demand module kicked out a number, which was like 350 some ads was the estimate to hit this revenue volume in October. Let's just say it was October for the sake of argument. And what happened from there was like a really useful, high utility conversation where the CTC strategist was able to have a really thoughtful, collaborative conversation with the client to say, do we believe we have a pathway to make 350 ads this month? CTC is going to come in and contribute this many. Your teams are going to do that many. Dude, can we look at each other and go, yeah, we see a pathway to this? And of course, the answer was sort of. And what actually happened as a result of that is they kind of work the puzzle backwards. They go, all right, well, we think we can actually get to 250 or 260 ads and then go back the other way. And that's what this would mean that for a revenue expectation. So I don't think none of these things feel like absolute, like you'll hear you've heard Taylor say this over the years, like forecasting is not about being right necessarily. It's about understanding where you're importantly wrong. And I think this idea of the creative demand and how many ads do I need is like, is it perfect science? No, absolutely not. Is it the best that we've ever had thus far? I think for sure it is. And I think the most important thing is it facilitates these conversations about what are the loop tiers, to use your catchphrase, what are the units of growth that we actually need to put together to create this outcome.
Still sending people from email, SMS, or direct mail to the same old product pages? It's time to level up with Vermont's AI landing page and PDP builder. In just minutes, you can spin up personalized landing pages and PDPs for every channel, from email campaigns to QR codes and direct mail to paid ads. No designer, no developer, no waiting around. And that's just the start. With Vermont, you can A/B test every funnel, customize experiences by audience, and track performance across all your channels, all in one sleek dashboard. Now here's the kicker. Most people think Vermont is just for ads, but actually 80% of our customers use it in email, direct mail, and every place they need a landing page that works harder. Try it yourself, free for 7 days. Head to vermont.com/CTC or just click the first link in the description.
One thing I was going to jump in here and ask too is because on other podcasts, Luke and I have talked about the creative demand model a bunch, and the conclusion there is roughly, hey, come work with us and we'll build this for you. Are there any, but my sense too, however, is that like, there's not really necessarily even a less good solution that a lot of people have in place than the creative demand model, by which I mean, are there any other ways to like estimate or get close maybe to a number that might work that you can do, sort of back of the napkin math or whatever, to get to that number?
We've developed a few different versions of the creative demand model over time, which would basically be attempts at getting at that question. And they haven't been as helpful because it's been really challenging to get to the output. Another data point in the conversation is, I think the way to lose the most amount of money in the world would be to take a bet on a brand you didn't know and how much creative output they have, and then just to like do that over and over again, because it's wild how disparate the conversations are. And most people don't realize where brands spending a similar amount are like, yeah, we generate 30 creatives a month, and like we've increased that recently to 50. So now we do 50 ads a month. And then another ad is we've made 800 ads every month for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And and everywhere in between, and the process of delivery and the feedback loop and time period to be able to get the assets count. There's so much variance in it that if there is another solution, we're not aware of it from the other brands that we've interacted with, because there doesn't appear to be consistency in the space. And we've attempted to develop different solutions over the years, and now have what we believe to be the most helpful sort of answer to this question. I think that's how I'd answer that question. The only thing I'd maybe add in is like, is over time, the goal is always going to be able to increase your creative output, because if you're trying to grow the business, you're going to spend more, you're going to need more creative output. And for every additional dollar you spend, you need more creative than you did for the prior dollar, right? So that's sort of how it works over time, typically. And so in that pursuit, making another 100 ads this month than what you had previously planned is probably a good muscle to start building, and probably a good routine to start getting, because you're going to need those 100 ads. If you didn't already this month based on your creative demand, you're going to need them 3 to 6 months from now, if that's where you want to go in terms of the growth of the business. So building a creative resourcing model, whether that be internal, multiple vendors, agency, combination of all of those, building a creative resourcing model that can give you 500 ads a month and a cost profile that works for the business is something every business should have in place right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In that's like the absolute truth for sure. Like building the muscle, building the pipeline. And we've talked about this in this podcast before, about like what that investment would take, and how people seem to have no problem or even enthusiasm out of shoveling hundreds of thousands of dollars a month into the Zuckerberg coffers. Yeah. But the idea of resourcing this thing is a little bit more challenging. I think it's because it's hard to get to the number. So part of it is like, for us to come back with these numbers out of the creative demand module, that's like, 150 or 200 or 300 ads or whatever the number is, it allows us to start having conversations about the level of investment required to actually get there, and honest dialogue about how much, CTC can be the solution and help with that. And to Luke's point also, that it's probably, it should actually be diverse sources of creative from different types of inputs. CTC makes some, we can help with some UGC. You have a brand team that makes some branded ads. You have some other, content creators that you work with. It really should be this. And if we have that number, 200, 300, whatever it is, you can sort of back into the cost. And then you can just extrapolate out further. Like, if here's where we are right now, and here's where we want to be in 12 months from now, approximately, here's the, the napkin math around how much we think that could cost in creative pipelining to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like, to your point, Tony, like at the very least, doing the exercise of, okay, for example, saying like, we ran this many ads in September. This is the average amount of spend on each one of these ads. If we want to spend X amount of money in October, and we have that average, at the very least, I feel like that would show you doing like that wouldn't be like maybe the most accurate math, but it would at least say something along the lines of like, you need way more creative than you think you do. So,
which is kind of the punchline that we get to in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I imagine it is, right? Where
but
it's
way
like,
more is like I think the itch that we're trying to scratch for ourselves is like, all right, well, way more is like kind of vague.
Yeah,
we say
sure.
Like 50 more, or 100 more, or 102.5 more potentially.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, whatever the case may be, you do have to like put your foot on the gas a little bit more. But okay, cool. I think that sort of covers our bases here. Let's move on to our second voicemail here. Let's see what this person is.
Hello, quick question for Luke and Tony. How often should brands be reforecasting during Q4? Weekly, daily, or by campaign?
So who wants to jump in on this one?
Well, I think there's some trade-offs here. We do our forecasting process monthly. So we do a 12-month forecast for brands that we partner with, and then we reassess it monthly. I think there's a spectrum here for this idea of, on one hand, you're setting the forecast, and that never moves, and having that be sort of a root truth that you operate against on one end of the spectrum. let's say you made a forecast for a year and you never touched it ever again. That would be like an extreme version of that. All the way on the other end of the spectrum would be you change your forecast daily based on whatever's happening. So the right way to operate is some grounding principle that never moves. So the business is trying to achieve this over the course of a year or 12 months or 6 months or even a month. And then some reassessment at some interval that takes into consideration what's actually happening. So, but Luke, I'd be curious because your teams do this day in and day out. So
He's
I
the
would love to
weatherman,
hear
after all.
Yeah. How often do you share your forecasts?
Share. Wait. Say. Share your forecast in terms of with who?
That's actually a good question. So if you're creating a forecast with a brand, and let's say it's for the purpose of a board presentation.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's good. So my initial answer to this question actually was going to be we do it all. Like we forecast on a yearly, forecast annually, and then we break that into the monthly, and then we break that into daily targets, and then we have daily projections for every single campaign and every single media channel as well. So we have this for everything. And over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we break down the daily targets into hourly targets so that we can track against it. So yes, option A, B, C to the caller's question, and option D of hourly and certain time periods. But to this question of like who sees what forecast when, and so sometimes I will message forecasts in terms of sort of the broad business forecast. This would be sort of a monthly and yearly level P&L forecast. Is you have your budget, you have your board, and you have your bonus forecast. And so those are going to be the different groups that are sort of going to see it. So the budget is sort of what you're expecting to run the business on a daily basis. Is one of the core decision makers. The board is what you bring to the board, which is a more conservative view of the budget. And the bonus is a more aggressive view of the budget, which is what you're goaling the rest of the folks against. Similarly, I think the time window in which these things get shared with different groups of people requires some thought in terms of how that breaks down. Because the main reason would be like a day like during Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, or the time period leading up to it, where we break down targets into hourly targets, right? But all the things we're aware of, Google has meaningful delayed ROAS, especially when you look on a daily and hourly basis. The ROAS, like you should not be looking at the ROAS number in that small of a time period. But we have goals for Google ROAS by day that get broken down hourly. So if someone from your board is looking at an hourly tracker and seeing Google ROAS at a 1.0 against a 10.0 target for the day because you're 3 hours into Black Friday, that's probably not helpful for anyone, right? Because it's like all the attention is going to be, whoa, this efficiency is so low. Is this why we're softer on revenue than anticipated, right? Like there are certain groups of people that information is helpful for and certain groups of people that's not. And so I think that requires intention in that way. But you need to be able to have visibility into every campaign, every day, and then on your big days, broken out those targets by hour, so that for the right groups of people, you can't make decisions against each of the metrics.
So like partially it's about figuring out there's certain cadences of reforecasting or sharing reforecasts that would sort of trigger short-term thinking or short-term style behaviors, let's say in a client or something like that. And that's a situation in which you want to avoid, sort of like oversharing performance or forecast or something like that, right?
Yeah, and the main reason is the main reason for that would be how the attention, it's sort of like we've been talking a lot about budget allocation and attribution and measurement, and so it's sort of like under that same lens where if you introduce 7 different marketing platforms in the decision-making process, then it's just going to take everyone 3 hours to get on the same page because it's so complex and there's just so many people, right? Where like that's not what's going to be most helpful, because you can spend those 3 hours thinking about, hey, based on our pacing today, should we actually think about our Cyber Monday offer adding a third tier where it's 5 or 10% higher offer, higher AOV, like that's sort of a conversation that's like going to make a meaningful impact on the business rather than 3 hours around why Google's pacing behind the number just because of the delayed ROAS and how to understand that and unpack it in that way. So that would be the main reason, to direct the attention and focus for the right groups of people against the levers that they are going to be able to impact in a most meaningful way.
Gotcha. Tony, anything else you want to add on this?
Yeah, I just want to double down on Luke's point. Like the forecasting and measuring is something that, like, as digital marketers, we are addicted to, but it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's all true. Like we have to have the forecast at all the various levels. We have to think about how we operationalize against that, and at the same time, we have to not be subject to the trap of over-indexing our time on measuring while we need to be indexing our time on creating marketing moments and speaking to our audience.
Right. Yeah, over-indexing on talking about what's going to happen as opposed to spending time making something happen, which is definitely a trap people can fall into for sure. All right. Cool. Let's jump into our final question here. So this is a text question here I'm going to read out. So it's 2 parts as well. First question is, if your brand's top performers are all UGC/influencer content, should you still invest in evergreen ad creative, by which I think they probably mean stuff like design stills or whatever, like other types of creative? And then the second question is, how do you balance short-term performance wins with long-term creative durability? A slightly bigger question than the first, but let's start with that first one. So if you have like a very clear sense that there is a specific ad type that is really crushing for you, what's the point in investing in other types?
Well, I think it's to the caller's like second question, like around creative durability, like that the reason why to make the investment diversified is the same reason why you would make your stock portfolio investment diversified, because the UGC style stuff is like in vogue right now for sure, and absolutely working in almost all, and frankly in every account we put it in. But if you stop there, then what you're robbing yourself of is the opportunity to create the pipeline and the resourcing and the infrastructure to actually create a diverse creative portfolio.
Yeah. Luke?
So it's just a question of the return on those assets. So a piece of creator content, as an example, might cost you $300 to $500. It should probably cost you in the $200 to $300 range is what you should be looking at for like a lo-fi video asset. But it's a few $100s that you're going to be investing into that, and some sort of minimum in terms of the asset output. A designed still image with a headline on it of existing product photography, you could probably get for $30 to $50 per asset. So you likely could get 10x as many assets, right? For now, the amount of volume at efficiency, that you're going to be able to get is going to be different between those things. But if you have this sort of relationship where it's 10 times lower cost for the still assets relative to your creator content, I would wager it's probably worth the investment. Now, that's something you're going to have to look at and understand that relationship of X many dollars, how much spend, how much purchase, how much incremental contribution margin did you get from those, right? Like the incremental revenue and the contribution margin against that, and was it a worthy investment? But that's what you're going to want to look at, is the return against those things. And once you look at that, it probably becomes clear that a mix of these assets is what you need, and both is the answer, right? Like you can get incremental contribution by adding in designed, branded, still and video assets, in addition to keeping your creative content going and probably increasing the volume of your creative content. The answer is going to be both, but just some relationship. And maybe the outcome is, 1/10 as many still and branded assets, creative content, but it's still going to be some in there. We're actually working on something that can actually create a demand model called the creative demand plan that's going to help answer this question. So a little tease there, because it's a challenging one. where it's, okay, you need this many ads. Okay, what format should they be, and in what moments, and what product should they be focused on, which is a really important one. And we haven't seen a solution out there for, so we've been banging our head against the wall and are getting close on having something available. But both, there's just going to be some relationship between the amount of volume and the cost related to the units.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it maybe to Tony's earlier point that there just doesn't seem like any point, given how much volume you need to create anyway, in not investing in like a wide range of diverse creative. I mean, obviously, like continuing your UGC efforts, maybe even expanding on those, but then like the ad accounts needs are going to go beyond what you could probably produce with just UGC creators anyway. So you might as well be focusing on things like stills and design assets, that type of thing.
And like you're, just because the UGC style content is what's working now, like you're sort of like actively, if your investment was like totally in that camp, you're actively going against what Meta is very clearly telling us the machine, the Andromeda algorithm wants, which is diversity and creative. So I think you just by not expanding out, even if you have a particular type of creative that's working now, I think what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for future risk.
Yeah.
That you know now would be assuming you have like a nice UGC pipeline and you got some things working, now would be an opportunity to go try and work on some other muscles. You know, it's like if you go to the gym, you know, like not every day can be like chest and arms, you know, like work out, do some squats, you know, don't skip leg day.
Much as we'd like him to just be chest and arms every single time. Unfortunately, you can't skip leg day. All right, folks. Well, I think that's a good way to summarize this in answer to this question is don't skip leg day when it comes to making creative, when it comes to doing all this stuff, because it'll have payoff in the long term and you won't look like you have stick legs. So let's do a quick little slide into hot seat corner here, or rather, I should say hot take corner, and let's see what our spiciest take for the week is. Let's start with you, Luke.
Oh, I already did that one. I have to. They're all lukewarm takes. I need another 20 seconds here. I got to think.
All right,
I can't.
Tony, you got one?
Potato salad is actually the best kind. It's hot. It's served hot.
Well,
and it's got like sauerkraut and other various flavors in there, and it's spectacular.
Okay, hot take in more ways than one. Luke, did that buy you enough time?
No, it's because it just got me thinking about other things. I was thinking about something more immediately helpful to our audience, although that may be very helpful to some people who are needing to make a decision today of, do I go with American potato salad or German salad for dinner? And you've just given them the answer.
Yeah.
I was going to say something like, I may or may not be wearing right now, but that's not really a hot take. So that's all I got.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, if the hot take, but let me. I don't necessarily have one lined up either, to my own chagrin. Let me see. Hot potato salad. That's a pretty good one as far as hot takes go. I'm going to say that okay, here we go. This is definitely a hot take, which is that the late 2000s, early 2010s were the worst time for music, at least in recent American history. I'm just going to say that. It was just because I was like a classic rock guy in college, and I didn't like any of the music that was coming out, but it's something I still stand behind. So that'll be my hot take. Tony, what do you think about that?
Well, I was trying to think of like any music or bands or anything that I like that popped out of like 2010 era.
There's a lot of good pop and stuff, but rock, I don't know. It's on the downslide. But all right. Well, I think that's
Viva La Vida by Coldplay.
There you go. Well, that was the beginning of the end for them, though. That was the real
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, now there's pop. But all right. Well, anyway, folks, I think that's going to do it for us. So again, if you want your questions answered on this pod, go ahead and leave us a voicemail, 866 DTC 2263. You can shoot us a text there. Also, hit up me, Tony, Luke on Twitter, X. Send us your questions. We would love to read them on the air. But until next time, for Tony the Chopper Chop, for Luke the Weatherman Austin, I'm Richard Professor Gaffin. You all have a good one. See you.